Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market here with another episode of Treasure or Trap, where we look into a product and see if it's a good buy right now or if it's a trap to get into. So today I've chosen Phyrexia All Will Be One set booster specifically because Wizards of the Coast did just announce a last call on this product. So let me explain what a last call is before we move on. A last call is where Wizards reaches out to distributors and asks them how many more of these they are anticipating to order before they close the print window once and for all for these sets. So this is usually given for standard sets about 6 to 12 months before they rotate. We already had Dominaria's last call and March of the Machine's last call, I want to say 3 or 4 months ago. They kept Phyrexia open because Phyrexia sales were still quite good. And this is actually interesting because they did Kamigawa actually after it rotated. So a little bit early for maybe a hot selling set like Phyrexia, but I don't blame them with like Final Fantasy and all the other stuff they have down the pipeline. They probably do want to sunset a lot of these products and not get into the bloat that we had during the new Capenna through Commander Masters era. So without further ado, let's actually analyze to see if these are good buys. So I believe that the distributor price of Phyrexia All-in-One set boosters right now is $115. I expect that to come down. There is only one distributor that actually has these available, and they are pricing a premium, probably because they are still a hot product. I think that once they get a reprint, we probably will have either the pre-set or pre-play booster when set boosters did have their increase. I can't remember which set boosters actually had the increase in MSRP or price or distribution cost, because it's been a wild ride with these products, because there have been small increases in, like, you can't compare set boosters from 4 years ago from like 2 years ago, because I know there was a price increase at one point. So if I remember correctly, I think the set boosters around this time period were $95. And then they did a reprint of these, and the waves went up to like 100. And now I'm thinking they're like maybe going to be 105 to 110. So don't quote me on this. I don't know what the distribution price out the door will be when these do get their last call reprint. Distributors are all over the place too with the kind of the price gouging, and the, you know, they are looking at markets and trying to eke out as much profit margin on these things as well. So anyway, let's get on to the analysis for the Phyrexia All-in-One set boosters. So we actually look at the TCG player. We do have very good sales for a set as old as this, and especially in a competitive market with Final Fantasy and everything. There's lots of good products. There's Modern Horizons still. There's Commander Masters, and this is selling for pretty good premium. We've all been trained that any sort of markup above distribution cost is actually like, whoa, these are going for so much, because the market is so used to just paying near distribution costs. I still can't wrap my mind around how these online sellers can make it work, other than they just must have better outlets or better deals than I'm able to get to get their prices down as low as they can and not get killed by like fees and shipping. But if we do look at what is sold in the past few days, this is actually quite a healthy amount that has moved. And again, I'm surprised. This is Final Fantasy, peak Final Fantasy, and people are still buying Phyrexia All-in-One. So 4 sold today at 130, and if we actually go down, it's been around 130, 135, I would say, for about a month or a month and a half. If we look at the quantities that are still available, there isn't even any at 130 left on the open market. We have at 131 with shipping, and then if we get to about the page one, it's all the way. There's only one page left of this. So if we look at current quantity left, there's only 120. That's actually quite a small amount for a set that is still in standard. So like I said, these prices will come down because of the last call that has been issued by Wizards of the Coast. I'm not sure when that wave is going to come in. Typically, it's anywhere from a couple weeks to a month before. But as I mentioned, there's already distributors that still have these in stock, and the last reference point that I have of what these cost, I think, is $115. So at that $115 price, I'm not sure if that is a buy, but maybe if we can get these down to $110 or $105 with this last call, let's take a look to see if Phyrexia All-in-One is like a slam dunk of a set. So first off, if we actually look at the prices for Phyrexia All-in-One, it's nothing special. So this is definitely a set that you need to bank on aging well long term. So a mythic, just one mythic at the $40 range, and then a big drop to like Elish Norn at 24, and then another big drop at Atraxa. And unfortunately, Atraxa just got a reprint in Final Fantasy, so that's going to affect the price. And I think that people actually will like the Sephiroth version better than the Atraxa version. And from what we've opened from Final Fantasy, these cards in that slot are actually quite common. It's like 1 out of every 3 packs has one of the I'm not even sure what they're calling them in Final Fantasy. I'm all over the place with the definitions of stuff, but it's the reprints in Final Fantasy where they've just reprinted them with names of Final Fantasy characters. And we saw basically every card opened from the reprints. They're very common, like the Wildsville Drain, and they're going to get a lot of supply into the market with those reprints. And then if we go down even further to the first rare is Dark Six Shores, and this is another thing that I think that this set would age a lot better if Wizards hadn't have reprinted these guys like crazy. So these lands are contained in various products, like supplemental products, even the Challenger decks. I don't think Dark Six Shores is in one, if I remember correctly, but these lands have been reprinted like crazy. So these aging long term, I know they see Modern play and specifically Pioneer play. Those formats are going to have to pick up in popularity, similar to Standard, and we do see these things go in cycles where Standard gets hot, and then it's like 1 or 2 rotations after when a Standard is hot, then we see like Pioneer and Modern, because things come in waves. People that get into Standard then are like, kind of graduate is the terminology we call it, to, I'm going to my deck rotate, but I still want to play it, or I'm feeling up to playing these longer formats. I've been in the game for a longer time, and so I'll want to play Pioneer or Modern, and these fast lands do see play in both those formats, so they have those going for them. However, the amount that Wizards of the Coast rotates these into Standard or into things like Challenger decks or even into Commander decks, I highly do not think that these will ever go up in value before they're reprinted in some sort of slot. So I like sets that have a land base. If I were to pick sets that don't have a good land base versus one that does, of course, I lean towards those. So New Capenna still even looks good to me, because those that haven't seen a reprint and they see so much play in Commander. And the fast lands, though, unfortunately, have just been printed. If we go down to the next, like, rare, we have the Condo of Worlds that I believe has had a reprint already in a Commander deck, and many of these other cards too. So the thing is, like, they do have the Toxic mechanic that will be quite hard to reprint, and that will make sets age well, because they're not going to just chuck these in like any old Commander deck, and so some of these cards will begin to accrue in value, and that actually does affect the sealed prices. So whenever it becomes specifically the expected value out of a booster box, if it ever becomes greater than the box price, you better believe there will be those mass box openers that will open up the product to then get the cards. And this does have a list, so I didn't research the list. Maybe I should have done that for Phyrexia, because I know that the list does impact the overall value of a set long term. If you actually look at a good discrepancy is to look at New Capenna draft boosters versus New Capenna set boosters, and that the discrepancy there in pricing is mainly just due to the list being very good from the New Capenna set boosters. I think you had like Vampire Tutors in that, and that actually does add, and people have crunched the math, that actually does add to the expected value quite substantially, and then does put over the tipping point of when things become actually profitable to crack versus keep sealed. And so Phyrexia might have that going for it with the list as well. But as it stands, if you're just looking at the set, it doesn't have another slot other than these Phyrexia all be one Praetor concept Praetors, and there's only 4 cards in these. I believe these are quite rare, so I'm not sure if they're even significant when evaluating whether the box is worth it long term. But there's Shouldered in here, there's Vorinclex in here, and Jin Cataxis, which are all very highly sought after cards for the Commander format. So it does have that going for it as well, a little bit of a cherry on top for Phyrexia. Now on to kind of the nostalgic factor. I think that this is going to be a box that is very beloved. A set that's very beloved for a long time to come, and those do have the potential of going up. We've seen things like Dominaria and War of the Spark went through the roof. Those have both come down from their highs, but it was the same thing. It's like these packs were still being opened just due to the collectors and nostalgia of people liking those sets, and inevitably that leads to supply being outstretched by the demand, and of course the box prices will follow suit. So if we actually look at another metric that I look at, I typically go over to EHREC to see how much is being played in Commander. There are quite a few cards that are just bangers in Commander, as the kind of worlds have already got a reprint. As I mentioned, some of these cards will be very hard to reprint in Commander decks, like anything with the Phyrexian mana symbol or the toxic mechanic. It's tough for Wizards to put those in a specifically like the standard commanders because they don't want to overwhelm new players with so many mechanics. And there is quite a few cards that, yeah, I think go anything above 3% decks. That's what you're looking for in Commander if prices will start to go up if they don't get reprints. So as I stated, there's quite a few that have a lot of overlap between constructed formats like Modern, like Pioneer, and right now even in Standard, that I think this set was just a home run compared to the set surrounding it. I mean, it'd be interesting long term which one will actually age better. Like March of Machines just is packed full of a lot of kind of sleeper cards as far as casuals are concerned, because a lot of those cards just do they have a lot of flair in them. Whereas this was more of a tight set that had, I mean, some of these cards though do have. I mean, you look at things like the Mondrak, Glorious Dominus, or even Elish Norn. I mean, those are some cards that are just really, really, like what I say, the cards that have flair, that do big abilities, and are easy to slot into casual decks and competitive decks alike. So anyway, Phyrexia LB1, that's my analysis for this. Is I think this definitely is a product that you should be picking up. If you are someone that wants to hold on to a few boxes, this is definitely better than something like a Dominaria United long term, because it has a lot more going for it. And even though this, I think one of the reasons why prices for specifically the rares are so low is this set was opened up like crazy. This was a little bit of a breather in I know March Machines was a set that wasn't open up very much because it was competing with so many other products out there that were just so much better. Phyrexia LB1 though, I think had a little bit of breathing room, where this definitely was like the hallmark product, the key product, and it was opened up like crazy. And so the singles, they're in really, really high supply compared to a lot of the sets like Brothers War, March Machines, and Dominaria at this time period. So that's my analysis. I think that this definitely is a buy if the price is reasonable. Like, I wouldn't be paying $130 for this on the open market right now. It will come down, but even anything up to like $115, I think is a pretty good hold. And I mentioned, if you aren't a subscriber of my rant channel, I like to call it, the Gone Rogue Games channel, I've proposed a question of where we are going with Final Fantasy. Is Final Fantasy just going to gobble up everything and it's just going to crash the market, or is it going to cause like a purchasing frenzy of something we saw similar to Surging Sparks with Pokemon, where people got into this new hot set and all of a sudden everything else became hot? Like, so you'd think that, okay, everyone just purchased Surging Sparks, but actually it caused like a rising tide lifted all boats type scenario for Pokemon. And we could see Final Fantasy doing the same thing. And if that's the case, then I really like Phyrexia LB1 and a lot of other products around this time period, for then people that then get their fill of Final Fantasy and still have some extra spending money, they're going to start eating up these products. And I wouldn't be surprised if we actually go into a market that's very similar to the Surging Spark era of Pokemon, where everything older really started to go up in value too. We saw a Scarlet and Violet. If you're not familiar with the Pokemon market, this might not make any sense, but there was a stagnant time period for Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield, where nothing was moving. And then a set called Surging Sparks came out, and then miraculously everything became popular. And I'm actually thinking Final Fantasy might do that for Magic. So it could go either way. We could go back to Lord of the Rings 2.0, where everything gets crashed except for things called Lord of the Rings, in this case Final Fantasy, or we can have a Surging Spark type effect where everything Magic just becomes liquid gold. So yeah, it's very interesting, and this is a product that I definitely keep my eye on, and I would definitely put this in the category of a treasure. So that's my analysis for this week's episode of Treasure or Trap. We'll probably check back. Hopefully I can start pumping these out more than once per week, because there's some really interesting products right now. So check back. I will probably do one for Modern Horizons 3. I just had a alert by one of the distributors that those quantities are starting to become quite low, and there's a lot of movement. And Commander Masters is also moving at a high rate, according to distributors. Like, a lot are being reordered and purchased, and supplies are starting to run low for that set. So if you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe to keep your updates for Treasure and Trap and other rogue market analysis. Thanks for watching.